It's a beautiful Friday morning. We say good morning and welcome to VOP this morning. As usual, thank God it's Friday. I always get excited when we get to Friday because, like I say, I normally have time to rest over the weekend. And, this early morning wake up, do your shoe and come and all of that. Oh, well, good morning once again and thanks for joining us. I am Chukwuma Okoro. Now, let's take you through the interesting stories we have lined up for you this morning. We start from the electoral reforms, where the National Assembly has defended its decision to drop mandatory electronic transmission of results, insisting that the process was credible, inclusive as civil society organizations detect loopholes. Now, from there, we go to Rivers State, where the lawmakers have suspended the impeachment move against Governor Fubara and his deputy, Ngozi Odu. And in the world of insecurity, dozens killed in Kebbi attack as forces launch new joint operation. Now, these are the major topics of discussion, but we also have other interesting topics that will weigh in the course of the show.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us on VOP this morning. My name is Jane Ogoye.
All right, then. Good morning to you. Yes, thank God it's Friday. I'm Moses Humphrey. So let's dive into it, take you through some of the conversations Nigerians are having. Now, the Nigeria's National Orientation Agency, NOA, has issued a stern warning to traders and market operators across the country, cautioning against hoarding and arbitrary inflation of prices of staple foods during the holy season of Ramadan and Lent. The agency's Director General, Lanre Isaonilu, expressed concern over reports that some marketers are deliberately withholding essential commodities such as rice, beans, and cooking oil, to create artificial scarcity and exploit fasting communities. Now, he described the practice as economically disruptive and morally indefensible, stressing that these sacred periods call for compensation, charity, and empathy for the less privileged, not profiteering. Oh, well, it's a good thing that the NOA is doing this, but, a good thing the NOA is doing this, and it's something. It's heartbreaking when you see traders, especially those that sell fruits and the rest, things that people ordinarily would need during this time of the year, hold the prices because they know you need them. You see things as small as date not. The price of date goes up. And you start to wonder, who really buys dates? But because at this time of the year, a lot of people use those things to break their fast, the price go up. Well, it's not just about the holy month, either Ramadan or Lent. I think this should be done year-round, all year round. Government should find a way to control arbitrary increase of goods and services. Market leaders should have a hand in it, control the prices of these things, so they don't just go up. I'm not saying people can't sell depending on how they purchase the commodities, but there should be some sort of regulation. There should be some sort of benchmark, so the populace are not taken advantage of. And then we spoke the other day about unions, market unions, and the impact they play in controlling prices, usually to the detriment of the people. So there should be regulation. FCCPC should also chime into this one and enforce proper regulation all year round. But it's a good thing what the NOA is doing at this time.
Well, the National Orientation Agency, well, I don't know whether there are too many angles. There are two angles to this, that I will talk about. One is the core mandate of the NOA. I was wondering, is this what the NOA should be doing? Because we also have a FCCPC, the commission that is responsible, for price control and consumer protection. The agency, on top of my head, I can't get it correct, the actual acronym. It is headed by Tunji Bello, former commissioner for information here in Lagos State and all of that. So I think it's their own responsibility to ensure that, Nigerians don't profiteer. While we admit that you are supposed to make profit in their business, we are against profiteering. That is number one. On the other side of it, when we talk about headline inflations, it is very clear that Nigerians contribute a certain high percentage to it. By what? By profiteering. We all understand that maybe because of exchange rate and all of that, there should be marginal increase in the price of items, food items. But we see a situation. One man came to our show the other day and said, when people buy a bag of gari from me for 7,500 naira, 50 kg of gari, you know what? They take it to the market after transporting it with probably 1,000 or 2,000 and sell it for 20,000 naira. That is profiteering. That is not caused by inflation. And we see this happen in all sectors of the market. If it is, go to meat, go to wheat, that is grains and all of that. You see people adding, that is inflated prices and all of that. And it doesn't solve our problems. When we are discussing a situation where Nigerians are in Ramadan now, and all of a sudden there's an increase, sharp increase. I went to a corner shop the other day to buy something, and I was looking for a particular brand of milk, and they said the woman told me it's not available. And I said, why? He said, well, they are holding it because this is Ramadan and that the price will eventually go up. You know, so it is not as a result of the fact that the product is not in
available.
the factory, it's not available. The problem is because people ordinarily hoard it. You know, you recall when we used to have fuel crisis, you know,
Yes.
you go to filling stations and they have fear, but they are holding it.
They switch off everything.
They switch off everything, you know, so that when people gather, you know, when
They
they
can
see a
now
very
inflate
long
the
queue, they
price.
now inflate the price. And people will be willing to buy. So that is what we are saying now. We understand that there is inflation, headline inflation, but it is not ordinarily caused by macroeconomic indices. It is caused by the human error to eat all. Nigerians, instead of making profit, when they get the profit, they tear it. That is what we call profiteering, which is not good. And it's even against our laws. You see?
They overdo.
We overdo. You know how we do things in Nigeria, we overdo. But it's a good thing that National Orientation Agency has taken it up, and I hope that they collaborate with other agencies. Is it possible for us to have price control?
It's not
in
possible.
a liberal economy. That is the
I
problem.
don't think it's possible. And you know, the other day we talked about it and we said we are our biggest problem. Nigerians are not kind people. I'm sorry to say that. We take every opportunity to rip people off. I don't know for me, most times if I want to go to the market and I want to get the best bargains, I know how I would dress. Even if it's the truth. Because they profile you, but that's even a way. They will profile you so you even realize that on a single stretch where they sell tomatoes, you will get different prices. It's just who we are.
But there could be a benchmark.
Yes, there could be
a basket should not go beyond this amount.
There could be a benchmark, but I think beyond
The problem
moral,
is that even the benchmark itself is inflated. That's the problem.
do we even have a unified benchmark? And I also think that besides the moral dilemma, the reason why these prices are also skyrocket, we shouldn't also forget that the cost of transportation is also factored in there. I mean,
No, those are the macroeconomic indices
let's take
that
aside
should
the fact that
help
Nigerians,
you set a price.
Yes, I agree with you. But I'm just saying beyond the moral responsibility we have to ourselves, there are also other factors, just like you mentioned, that also contribute to the cost of these products. And I think we shouldn't also, take them out of the way.
Well, like you said, it's not the core mandate of the NOA, but of course, the NOA, they are doing this. They should do more.
They should do
more in terms of sensitizing people. There are a lot of other things that we're troubled with. Okay, in some states, I hear that, I think it's in Kano State, where pubs and bars have been shut. They've been asked to close down for the period. It's okay. I mean, some will argue that we are in a secular society, but then if you locate yourself in places where you know a certain religion is prevalent, you just might have to abide by the rules there. But it's also a call to the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, that's the FCCPC, to do the needful. Like Jane said, we may not be able to have proper price control, but I feel there should be some sort of subtle regulation. The subtle regulation will be a lot more effective when the dues and levies that marketers pay, that these unions pay, these traders pay, are greatly reduced. That's what I think.
No, you have a point there, but I would like for us to compare notes now, because when we talk about social regulation, talking about price control in a liberal and deregulated economy like we have, let us, if you to take you less than 2 hours to get to Benin Republic here, if you go to Benin Republic, people will tell you that the prices have remained the same for probably the past 15 or 20 years. And if you go to Cameroon, the other side of Nigeria, the house rent there probably has remained the same for more than 25 years. So how are they able to manage all
Are
of
their
that?
economy better? Is their
If you talk
economy
about
better?
rentage, that's influenced by availability and demand.
Okay.
In certain areas where demand is high.
Okay, now let's leave rentage out of
Okay.
it. Even beverages, their prices almost remain the same year in, year out. Is it because the economies are tied
I wanted to
to the
ask.
economy of France that are able to regulate all of that? And you know their currency, somehow, whether it is good or bad, it's stable for them. So could that be part of our problem? Do we need to tie our own back to probably the British pound
No,
sterling?
I don't think that's our problem. I don't think.
So what's our problem? Let's interrogate it briefly.
Our problem is, I think Jane said it. We are a people that like to take advantage.
Yes.
Okay, the problem is in us.
Yes, we are people that like to take advantage. You purchase something. You purchase something. You know this is the amount. There was even a time it was worse, where you have goods in your store and somebody come, but because I think that had to do with importation policy and the rest of them. So you need to call somebody and say, look, the price in the market, has it gone up? What's the price now? And they tell you, and then you tell the customer that's standing right in front of you that, oh, sorry, the price I gave you 5 minutes ago has changed. Meanwhile, the goods there were goods you purchased a while back.
Would you say that is greed or survival?
Like I said, it ties to policies of government as well.
No, it's not policy.
complex.
It's not policy of
No, I
government.
don't
It
think
is
so.
about
complex.
us.
I don't
It's
think so.
complex.
It's
But
complex.
Nigerians play a greater part in what we are seeing. That is our problem. This inflationary trend, the rise and all of that is caused by Nigerians.
Yes.
Nigerians contribute a lot. Talking about the making of a cause, what just came to my mind is, I don't know if you saw that skit between Nedu and what's his name again, where they were trying to exchange dollar, and the moment he makes a call, the price increased and all of that until they got into a fight. Anyway, NOA, good job, keep it up, but collaborate with other agencies of government to ensure that you educate Nigerians. You can't have it all. Be a brother's keeper. Let's move away from that. Nigeria's House of Representatives has issued a formal apology after police fired tear gas at protesters outside the National Assembly in Abuja, sparking outrage and raising fresh concerns about democratic freedom. While the demonstrators mobilized against controversial provisions in the newly signed Electoral Act 2026, had gathered to oppose the Senate's approval of both electronic transmission and manual collation of election results. Tension escalated when protesters attempted to force entry into the complex, prompting police to deploy tear gas canisters, leaving several people injured and one woman reportedly fainted in the chaos. House spokesman Akiro Timi described the incident as regrettable and assured that a review is underway. Well, there's a difference between apologizing and taking responsibility. They are two different things. When you apologize, you do take responsibility for what happened, how to tear gas Nigerians. But within the, ambit of the law, is it proper for protesters, to force themselves into a premises that had been cordoned by the police? That's where I get confused, because I don't know the final points of the law as far as it's concerned. In as much as we have the rights, it's our fundamental human right, to express ourselves through protest and all of that. But you should also know that where you're right, to swing your arm begins, it ends when, it gets close to my nose and all of that. House of Representatives has said, well, we are sorry, we apologize for what happened. Beyond apologizing, they should also ensure that it doesn't happen next time, because if we allow these kind of things to happen, police, firing tear gas canisters at protesters. But at that point, were the protesters peaceful? That is another question that I've asked. Because the report says they tried to force themselves. They should have, if they had allowed themselves to protest within the precincts of the National Assembly, and probably ask one or two principal leaders of the House of Representatives to come and listen to them, it would have been a better thing instead of having to force themselves in. So at that point, the police has a duty, to protect that premises. That's my opinion. So we have to locate it between rights and responsibilities. While you have the right to protest, do you have the right, to force yourself into a premises where police are clearly cordoned? That is the missing link there, and probably my colleagues here will help me to untie all of that.
Well, I liked what you said, the last line, but I think it's not enough for the apology to happen. It's on record already that this is a long-standing thing that has always happened. Anytime people protest, the police has to put out tear gas to scare them out, and usually it plays out this way. After the tear gas, there's apology. But Nigerians are not, what we are fighting for, the real apology rather, would be the what's it called? Help me here. The making sure that the electronic voters, the electronic
transmission of
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the real
I spoke with someone yesterday, and he said, it's gone, and it's gone. That no amount of pressure that Nigerians pile on the president or the National Assembly will make them reverse that decision. Now, the option left for Nigerians, the opposition, civil society organizations, is to go to court and challenge it. And I say, go to which court? The court that an institution of government Nigerians are crying has already been captured. I mean, I'm talking about the judiciary.
I disagree when you say no amount of pressure.
No, that person said.
Of course.
Yes.
And I understand that's the perception of our political elites. They basically take Nigerians for granted. They know how far Nigerians are willing to go. Yeah. They know how to decimate our ranks. They know that, when you dangle a little this, a little that, people will shift stance, and then the whole protest or the whole clamor will die down. And that's exactly why Nigerians are still where they are, or where we are. We are not making progress because we are unable to hold our leaders accountable and demand what originally
Don't you
is
think
due
it's
unto
also
us.
because they have trained us to believe that?
No, they didn't train us. We are a laid-back people, for lack of a better word. No, we are laid back. Nigerians are.
We are laid back.
Nigerians
We are not laid back.
Nigerians are
Look at what we
laid
did to the
No, we are
military. Look at what we did to the
Nigerians.
military.
I'm talking about this.
At this point.
I think
Okay,
what
this
Nigerians
current
want
Nigeria.
is
Okay, the current
survival.
Nigerian.
Yes.
I think it's just survival.
No, it's not survival.
Nigerians are
If you're
laid
talking
back.
about,
Nigerians are the
if
kind
you're
of
talking
people
about
that
in the present, Nigerians are laid back.
you push a Nigerian to the wall rather than fight back. I mean, any other animal will fight back. Some other people in some other parts of the world will fight back. But you push a Nigerian to the wall, and the next thing is they break the wall, they find a way out. I mean, they just continue moving. If you continue to push, they continue moving.
I also think it's
Because they feel, oh, I don't need to face this now. There's another way. I can't come and kill myself.
Exactly. I also think it's because we are divided along religious lines.
No, it's not even about that.
There's a bit of, because most
we
times...
are looking at the individual as a unit of analysis,
Okay.
not as a collective.
Yeah.
If you push someone to the wall, a Nigerian, he will help you break the wall and find
Continue
an
moving.
Route, So I can, like Moses said, I cannot come and kill myself.
But why do we have that mindset?
Yeah, because we like life too much. We love life too much.
Survival now.
We'll
Because we are
become
alive.
lazy.
I never make my money, I no go die for Nigeria. That's the mindset.
Some historians will tell you that part of why we have that mindset is because we didn't even fight for our democracy in the first place.
Platter.
It was given to us on a platter.
Did Ghana fight? Ghana seemed to.
There was
more resilient.
No, there was a lot more pushback in Ghana. There was a lot more demand for democracy in Ghana.
At what point?
And why are you bringing Ghana into this?
No, because Ghana has become a model of democracy in West Africa.
Yeah, we should be proud of Ghana.
Yeah, we are proud of Ghana. We are proud of our brother Ghana, our brother countries, Ghana, and all of
His
that.
kinsmen.
Oh, well, let's move away from those conversations and let's touch on a few others now. Or better still, I think we'll just go to the papers because we do have quite a number of papers to touch on this morning. So let's just go to Nigerian Tribune. CSOs, ADC, Kwankwansia kick over Electoral Act 2026. We'll touch on the riders much later when at 10 o'clock during newspaper review. But more headlines here, window headlines. Pengasson faults Tinubu's executive order, says it's direct attack on PIA's provisions. Rivers Assembly halts impeachment of Fubara deputy. Gunmen attack Ondo community, kill monarch. And then you go further down, you have CDS. Army chief flag off Operation Savannah Shield in Kwara. Abdul Razak commends Tinubu. It's a brief relief to our people, he says. CDS seeks public support for operation. Osun splits Oshogbo Iwo Ibadan Road to 3 contractors for timely completion. And then you have more headlines here. Naira seen extending gains as African currencies hold steady. And on health, pre-competition sex can actually boost athletic performance. Study. Oh well, we have bigger problems on our hands than that right now. Oh well, these are the headlines on the cover page of Nigerian Tribune.
And the Punch leads with Tinubu's executive order. Federal government states LG's allocation may increase by 15 trillion naira. President moves to channel all proceeds directly to Federation accounts. NNPC, NUPRC, NRS revenues affected. Banditry, CBS, Kwara government rally troops as Operation Savannah Shield begins. Naira hits 2-year high at 1,347 to $1. DSS invites suspects as wife opens up on Dandi Yatta's abduction. El Rufai's lawyer protests home raid amid ICPC detention. Federal government defers 70% of 2025 capital budget to 2026.
Now let's quickly run through the Guardian newspaper with the window headlines. Retract executive order. Pengasson tells Tinubu warns of threats to PIA. NLC fires back at APGC. Gencos over 6 trillion naira bailout demand. Senate grills economic team considers trimming 2026 budget. Now the big story. African leaders, how oldest presidents tighten grip on youngest continent. More story from the Guardian newspaper. Like Rawa terrorists kill 34 in Kebbi communities. That's a very sad one. U.S. troops deployment to fight insecurity in national interest, says House of Representatives. I'll take that again for emphasis and clarity. U.S. troop deployment to fight insecurity in Nigeria is in our national interest, says House of Representatives. Reps to vote on 1999 constitutional amendment proposals. CSOs predict apathy as FCT poll tests new Electoral Act, Annex 2027 readiness. Opposition and CSOs kick as Electoral Act amendment widens 2027 fault lines. And the bottom strip headline, Rivers Assembly suspends impeachment proceedings against Fubara deputy. That's it from the Guardian newspaper.
And that's pretty much. Should we take the Telegraph?
Okay, yes, we can.
The New Telegraph leads with Electoral Law 2026. CSO slam NAS, Tinubu, warn of grave risk to 2027 polls. Terrorists raid military base in Borno, kill 8 soldiers, injure 23 and others. Rivers Assembly halts impeachment proceedings against Fubara and deputy. Vision 2028, CBN plans to develop new payment system. Those are the major stories on the New Telegraph.
And those are the headlines that we can touch on at this time. But at 10 o'clock, we'll go deeper into these headlines and make sense of it all. And we'd like for you to join us then as well. But in the meantime, let's look at the electoral reforms and the impact it's having on Nigerians.
world where power shifts with every headline.
In a nation full of questions.
In a world filled with noise, the truth needs a voice.
The policies that shapes our world and the economy that determines our future.
Every hour, every day, the grapevine keeps buzzing.
And together, we are committed to telling the stories that shape our world because your voice is our focus.
Don't forget, our voice matters the most. Let us come together and share our concerns.
Mr. Ofamiloni, and here's to VOP TV. Keep watching, stay tuned, do not touch that dial.
Arara, my name is Made Kuti and you're watching VOP TV. Keep watching.
Welcome, my name is Zika Davis. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, boys, viewers, everybody, boys and girls. This is VOP TV. Do you know what that means? Voice of the People TV. You don't have a voice, don't come here. You better make sure your voice is heard.
Are you ready for the extraordinary? Something big is happening on your screen. Introducing VOP TV. Now streaming on SLTV channel 264. From breaking news to captivating conversations, news analysis, giving you all sides to the story. We break in-depth discussions on the issues that matter, from politics to sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. VOP TV on SLTV channel 264. Join us as we redefine what television means to you. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice. In a world where truth is the ultimate power and opinions scream the loudest, it's time to wade through the noise.
Hunger no get drum! Hunger no get religion!
And scan the human interest and trending topics that matter. Stay tuned to The Issues, your plug to the stories making the buzz, from politics to science and technology, social justice, and more. Let's tackle the tough questions and expose the truth. The Issues on Voice of the People Television. Don't just react, understand. Do you want your voice to be heard? Do you know that you matter in the scheme of things? The People's Voice, the show where ordinary citizens take center stage as we discuss the biggest stories that affect you and I. With you in mind, we facilitate lively discussions, debates, and interviews on the topics that matter most to you and I. From social justice to economic empowerment, education to healthcare, governance, and more. Tackling tough topics and amplifying your voice. Join the conversation and make your voice count. The People's Voice. Make your voice count.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. If you are just joining us, this is VOP This Morning. The newly assented Electoral Act 2026 has sparked a fierce national debate, with the House of Representatives defending it as a step toward credible elections, despite admitting it is imperfect. While White House spokesperson Honorable Akiro Timi emphasizes that the law now expressly mandates the use of IREV and electronic transmission of results, critics are sounding the alarm over Section 60, subsection 3. This fallback clause allows for manual collection if electronic transmission fails due to communication failures, a term civil society organizations argue is dangerously undefined and prone to deliberate sabotage. While concerns also amount over the new 50 million naira administrative fee for political party registration and the restriction of result reviews solely to INEC officials, which activists claim creates a financial moat against youth participation and erodes transparency. Beyond the technicalities, the Act faces heavy criticism regarding the opacity and speed of its passage, with reports that lawmakers voted via voice vote without reviewing the final text, while IPERC and former INEC officials like Mike in Guinea have warned of dire consequences, suggesting that the no network excuse could reintroduce the era of incident forms and even endanger the lives of NYSC presiding officers at polling units if voters perceive technical glitches as fraud. As CSOs call for a nationwide simulation of the IRF system and the immediate publication of the Act's final text, the stage is set for a high-stakes legal and political battle over the integrity of the 2027 general election. Well, let's bring in our guest. We've been joined in the studio here in Lagos, we are broadcasting from Mr. Dele Fanimo. Dele is a reporter and a political affairs analyst. Good morning to you, Dele, and thanks for joining us on VOP this morning. Good to have you, sir.
Good morning, everybody.
Good to have you.
Thank God it's Friday.
All right, and we've been joined virtually by Mr. Eze Eluche. Mr. Eze Eluche is an attorney at law and as well as a political affairs analyst. Good morning to you, Barrister Eze Eluche, and thanks for joining us on VOP this morning.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for the invite.
Good to have you, sir. We appreciate your presence. Now, let's start from the studio here where we have Dele Fanimo. Dele, I mean, we are very conversant with this conversation. The House is now defending its actions. The Senate is defending its action. The President is even defending the action, said, well, we understand that it is imperfect, but it's a good starting point. Now, the Nigerians are asking, apart from, let me even ask you, Nigerians seem to concentrate more on the e-transmission clause, but there are other provisions of the Electoral Act. Something like, well, during the primaries, there's nothing like delegates again. It has to be direct. If you want to contest for presidency now and you are a Chukwumokoro political party, what you just need to do is the members of the political party will vote directly for you and not more delegates and all of that. So in all of this Electoral Act, are we overemphasizing the e-transmission of the mandatory e-transmission? Is that the only thing that will make our election free, fair, and credible? I would like for you to help us expand this conversation and make us understand the whole import of the new Electoral Act and how it is going to affect our elections 2027 and beyond.
You see, ordinarily, the issue of e-transmission rate time shouldn't have been the major focus. But given the antecedents of politicians, we are more concerned, Nigerians are more concerned about how elections will be manipulated using those clauses. For me, there are other areas which I consider as important as the e-transmission. For instance, I've not followed through to the end, but I've read part of these new amendments. I was expecting to see maybe Barrister Eluche, who is learned, where I'm lettered, would assist me in looking at some of those clauses in the course of the program. But there's no way, there is no way at all that the new amendment will not be circumvented. I gave an example yesterday. If you're talking about e-transmission versus manual transmission, there are technologies to evade e-transmission, even where you consider a safe place where you can use technology to transfer results. I gave you an example of a particular CBN governor that when it comes for monetary policy committee meeting, MPC meeting, at the Lagos office of the CBN, then the moment he comes to that hall before the meeting, he has a device. Once he switches off on that device, no phone around a radius of about a kilometer or so will work for the duration of his stay. And after the conclusion of the meeting, once he leaves with his siren, 2-3 minutes later, every network will be back. Within that period that is holding that meeting, what to get on your phone, no matter the service provider, is no service. Not even you try and it's not connecting. It will show you no service. Everything will be dead. So what makes, and that was as far back as 2008, 2007, 2009, when he was CBN governor. The person I'm talking about today is Soludo, the current governor of Anambra State. So at the level of CBN governor, if you could acquire that kind of device as at that time, and with the level of technology leap today, somebody who is ready to spend like 10 billion naira on governorship election, how much would they sell that kind of gadget that will not be able to procure and use where he wants to have an advantage using the manual procedure rather than the e-process?
So apparently your position is that the e-transmission is even is overrated. It's not clearly going to solve our problem.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, another area that I feel concerned about is rolling back. Rather than using religion and religious sentiment to roll back to January 16, it should have been the constitutional provision that should be enshrined in the electoral law that states that between the election and swearing in, there should be a gap of 185 days, which is about 6 months. Given the fact that 30 days make 1 month, and in some cases 31 days. So that gives an allowance of 5 days in case there is 31st of 5
or 29.
Or 29. So 185 days would have been enough for litigants to resolve at the tribunal, at the appeal court, and Supreme Court. Because as it stands today, if election is conducted in January, before you file and go to tribunal and get justice, it could take another 3 months. By the time you are in appeal, the person you are challenging his election is already at the tribunal on the seat, using the advantage of state power, using the apparatus of state, using the state resources
to influence
judgment. So that particular one, I was expecting that it will be included, but unfortunately, I am not aware. Maybe our learned colleagues here would explain.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Fanimo. Now, let's quickly run to Barrister Eze Luche. Barrister Eze, good to have you again. And since this act was hurriedly, according to the opposition, hurriedly signed into law by the president, we've not spoken with you. So we'd like to get your broad opinion, to issues around the Electoral Act 2026 as signed into law by our president. What are the high points to you? What are the upside and the downsides if you have studied it, broadly? Let us understand your views about, well, is it going to help us or how is it going to help us in one way or the other?
Well, thank you very much. Broadly speaking, I have always been against this whole idea of electoral reforms. Every cycle of elections, we do electoral reforms because we don't need them. We don't need them. And it's very clear. It is manifesting now. What we need to even checkmate more is the judicial process. It's our judges. Because in the last elections, if you recollect, the INEC chairman clearly stated that based on the Electoral Act, INEC made regulations and guidelines. Commonsensically, and even in law, when regulations and guidelines are made based on powers conferred by law, those regulations and guidelines become law. But the Supreme Court, the Nigerian Supreme Court, surprisingly ruled that INEC was not bound by those guidelines and regulations it made. And that was what threw the last elections to the winds. So the electoral process, we keep on regurgitating the same facts, electronic transmission, this and blah, blah, blah. And to what extent? The voters at the polling units should be able to know exactly what votes were cast. And within a couple of minutes, political parties should know their results. And then be aware whether there is any hanky-panky playing out. But with regards to this, what was signed hurriedly by Mr. Bola Tinubu, we don't have any. Last elections, Nigerians thought, okay, maybe they will do some good, they will do well. But now it is very, very clear that these guys mean no good. And I'll give you specific examples. In Section 75, for instance, they said that for a political party to be registered, you must pay 15 million naira to register as a political party. That is insanity. I mean, where does that, what brings up such? You have INEC staff who are already paid, who are just to vet that the particulars brought by a political party are truthful. And you now say the political parties have to pay 50 million naira to be registered. How much did the PDP, APC, and all these ones pay? Zero or near zero. So you want to make the electoral process. You want to keep more people away from the election circles. This issue, and secondly, the issue of electronic transmission, 60 subsection 3 of the Electoral Act, of the new Electoral Act. In the INEC chairman Mahmoud Yakub had stated that the IREV is so configured that the moment you impute the results, even if there is no network in the vicinity, the moment you arrive at a place where there is network, what you imputed will automatically be transmitted to the database. Just like when you send a text message from a location where there is no network. When you arrive at a place where there is no where there is network, the message by itself goes and has the time when you sent it. So there is actually no need to make all this noise about electronic transmission. Once you are using the same IREV and you are using the same materials that were provided. So this, to me, this whole hullabaloo about Electoral Act is just to distract Nigerians. But let Nigerians become very conscious of the fact that these guys are out to force their way through. And the issue is what Nigerians now do to safeguard the process. And what I suggest Nigerians should do, irrespective of the various sections which were smuggled in or smuggled out, when votes are cast, know the number of votes you scored or your party scored in a particular unit, transmit to the nearest, maybe the collation officer, so that within minutes of the end of polling, the votes are known. And Nigerians must come out firmly to stand behind those votes, irrespective of what is thrown against us. Because certainly they will bring in the security agencies, but we should not be bothered about them. We should forge ahead. That is the way I look at this process. And I don't believe in specifics, because the specifics are not even meant for us. The specifics are not meant for the betterment of Nigeria. The specifics are just to the track. Let me give you one more section. Section 84, that talks of the means of primary elections. How will it be conducted?
Okay.
Come on. Maybe very soon the Electoral Act will tell us how politicians will be sleeping with themselves or making friends. You focus so much on things that are unnecessary, and you give loopholes for this same judiciary. Like during the last elections, the Electoral Act was very clear. Members can challenge primary elections, but in the Supreme Court now said, okay, since there were issues with primary elections for some political parties, a non-member cannot challenge it. So the whole idea is this: election is about voting and the votes counting, voting and votes counting. We saw the charade that went through, that Mr. Benjamin Kalu, the Deputy Speaker of the House, how he messed up Nigerians, because what transpired on that, the world saw what we pretend as democracy. When 10, 15 sections get approved at the same time, with most of them contained of smuggled portions that even the members had not seen before, and you call that a democracy? Nigerians have to waken up. We cannot lie on our oars and say it was it's as business as before.
Okay.
Right. And let me talk about the civil society.
All right.
You see, we always mistake the civil society as fund-driven. The United States has cut off their funds, so most of the funds for these civil society groups come from the European Union. Okay. And guess who are the mainstays of the European Union? France and the United Kingdom. If you listen to the civil society, their press release, the end of it, despite acknowledging so many irregularities, they said the process will be imperfect, but we have to work with what we have. And that is the language Nigerians must not tolerate. We do not have to stomach irregularities. We do not have to stomach criminals ruling over us. If they thwart the electoral process, if the votes that are counted at your polling units don't tally with what is announced, Nigerians should come out on the streets and insist that their votes count. That is how it is done in other democracies. That is what makes it a democracy, and not the language of the civil society. because they cannot go against their funders. They cannot go against France, which is in bed with Mr. Tinubu. We have to realize all this and get ready for the next
election.
Thank you very
much. Barrister Eze Eluche. We're just having a conversation earlier, just before the show started. We were talking about the staying power of Nigerians. You're saying that don't stomach irregularities, come out and push back. But some Nigerians are of the opinion that, look, they will do what they will do regardless. So no matter how much you push back, Nigerians are people that don't want to stress themselves. Let me put it lightly. Nigerians usually don't want to stress themselves. But, well, anyway, I'll come back to you and then we'll talk about that if time allows us. But let's bring in Chief Asim Adams.
They don't stress themselves. We have been cowed. But Nigerians have realized that even when they say they won't stress themselves, they end up dying in the process. Do you know how many people have died in the course of the past 2.5 years who didn't want to stress themselves? Now they are dead and buried. So it is time to stress yourself and ensure that your votes get counted. Otherwise, many of us will be dead and buried. In fact, by the time they come into power next time, the tax act that is a bomb waiting to criminalize over 99% of Nigerians will be unfolded and off. Then we'll be dead and buried. So with yourself and make sure that the votes get counted. Thank you very much.
Right, so easily, Chief. Make sure your vote counts. Okay, Chief Asim Adams, who is a legal practitioner as well. Good morning to you. Welcome to the conversation.
Good morning to you, everybody in the studio. My colleague, Eze, I greet you especially.
Talking about making sure your vote counts. That's what some Nigerians are saying. And Barrister Eze Eluche has also reiterated that it's all about voting and ensuring that your vote counts. But with this passage of this bill, a lot of Nigerians seem to have lost faith. If you go to the streets, if you talk to people at street corners, you will feel voter apathy already overwhelming people. Nigerians seem to have decided that, look, they will do what they will do, regardless of what happens. Even the ADC, in today's publication, in most of the dailies, you'll find what the ADC said, that look, that the president signed the death warrant of elections, free and fair elections. That's how it's been put out there by the ADC. So how can the people, what are the opportunities or what is available to the people in terms of ensuring that their votes count, especially as it concerns this particular law now? And I'd also like you to touch on some aspects of the law that have been retained, PVCs, using your voter cards and the rest of them. There was a conversation around the possibility of using your NIN to vote. How much of that has improved and how much of that can help Nigerians execute a proper election?
You see, first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Moses. I want to tell you that I do not know why the National Assembly should ban prescribing regulations for a dependent body like the INEC. That is where the problem is. JAM, for instance, was established by law, but they make the procedures on how students enroll and get their result is independent to them. When you see the National Assembly, an assemblage of politicians who are going to participate in an election, making rules for the people that will conduct election, you can never get a free and fair election. It's just like JAM asking students to come and help them make rules on how elections should be done or conducted. That is why we're having problems in Nigeria today. Now, let me tell you something very good. There are going to be a number of litigations in 2027. Mark this thing I'm telling you today. Litigations will be too many. Now, let me give an example because of time. Section 50 of the Electoral Act, a part of it for you people. What he's saying is that, subject to Section 63 of this Act, voting at an election and transmission of results under this Act shall be in accordance with the procedure determined by the Commission. That is Section 50. That is, which means INEC will determine the procedure of voting and the mode of transmission of results. Does that not run to this section 65 of the Electoral Act 22? Because section 50 is saying that INEC can determine the mode of election and the mode of transmission of results. They have not amended that section 50. You have section 60 sub 5 now, which was amended to say electronic transmission of results shall be the thing that will take place. Is that these two laws, are they not conflicting? You are going to see that litigation will arise from these two. Mark them 50 and 60. One is giving, one is taking it out. Then you look at section 285 of the 1999 Constitution. This particular section, why are they scared of why are they scared of amending this section? What does this section say? It talks about tribunal. After election, you do tribunal swearing president, you swear in governor. Why can't you amend it to say that no president or governor shall be sworn in until all litigation concerning the election has been taken care of? Why can't they amend that particular section? Now, let me take you also quickly to section 135. There are so many. I listed about 40, but because of time, I will only dwell on this. Section 135 of the election was not amended, of the Electoral Act was not amended. What is that section talking about? He said, an election shall not be liable to be invalidated. I use capital letters, invalidated. It shall not be invalidated by reason of non-compliance. Non-compliance, again, capital letters, with the provisions of this act. If it appears to the election tribunal that the election was conducted substantially in accordance with the principles of this act, and that non-compliance did not affect substantially the result of the election. This has been the problem. What this section is saying is that where people be, in the Supreme Court, another whatever was that P2B, yes, the court agreed that they were rigging in the election, but the court is now saying that the rigging did not substantially affect the result of the election. Now, if you agree that there was rigging in an election, must the whole election be rigged before you now say you nullify the election as case may be? Is rigging part of election process or valid election process? So if a man is able to establish rigging, why can't he invalidate an election based on the fact that rigging has been and you accept there was rigging? The third one, if you go further, 136 is placing the burden on proof of an election not being done well in compliance with the Electoral Act on the candidate. Leader. That is, I am the one to prove that election did not go well. So even if I prove INEC will sit down and be looking at me, we are saying that just like the burden of proof in criminal cases does not prosecutor who arrests a man, so he should rest with INEC because they are the ones who conducted the election. To not tell us that this election, this is how we did it, and there was no rigging, the election was done in compliance with the Electoral Act. That burden should not be on the candidate, it should be on INEC. That is why you see INEC is relaxing, and when I call for them, I can never win before a tribunal in Nigeria today. So you see, these are areas, because of time, I will leave it there. Yes. Is this section 138? Is this section 73? So many of them. Is it the guidelines 38 and 48 of the Electoral Act that Supreme Court said is not part of the Act? How come that the guidelines are not part of the Act? Okay. And why is it that there is a conflict now? Supreme Court does not recognize IRF as a collation center. Are you aware? Supreme Court judgment does not recognize, that is what they said in this case. Supreme Court, the highest court in the land.
Chief Adams, I mean, you have made this thing look so scary. And if I heard you right, you said that you've gone through it, and you pointed out more like 40 contradictions, and you've gone through only 3 of them. Now, that's huge and very scary. Yes. Anyway, we'll continue to interrogate
it's
all
scary.
of these.
It has to be scary. It has to be scary. We have nothing there.
All right.
They should just allow elections should be. See, if we have men of integrity, we don't even need all these laws.
Okay.
For good election.
All right,
40,
then. Barrister Adams.
40 parts.
Barrister Adams, we'll come back to it in the course of the conversation so that we can expand it. Now, let's quickly run to Honorable Pascal Felix Pullover. But before we get into all of that, we understand that Honorable Pullover lost his sister, and our hearts go out to you and your family, and we pray that God accepts her soul in his bosom. Good morning to you, Honorable Pullover. I'm sure you have followed this conversation. Our condolences to you and your family.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
My condolence to you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay,
thank you
all
very
right.
much.
Now let's run into it. Barrister Adams and Barrister Eze Eluche have taken us through some of the legal aspects of somehow the contradictions in the new Electoral Act and that was signed into law by our president. I will ask you if you know any legal implication or any legal contradiction that you have seen, you can tell us. But I would like for you to talk about the fact that, well, this same Electoral Act is amended, has said, well, the burden of electing delegates is no longer, of electing candidates no longer rests on delegates, but on members of the political party, what they call direct primaries. How is that going to affect the emergence of presidential candidates, senatorial candidates, House of Representatives candidates, governorship candidates in the 2027 general election and beyond? Help us understand all of that, the implications of these direct primaries.
All right, thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to commend the members of the National Assembly for putting up what they did. Because as much as there are irregularities in it, it is not entirely bad. There are certain aspects of it that at least even the legally renowned minds can accord them some little bit of kudos for the work they did in it. But then for me, like yesterday on my handle on social media, I said, as much as we are jubilating and celebrating direct primaries, because I think the celebration seems to be more in this part of the country where I am. So much so that you keep seeing on people's handles, they keep like, it's a bad day for delegates, it's a bad day for delegates. And then I said, what about the consensus part of it? You know, it's a way of bringing the delegate thing from the back door.
So I'm sorry, Honorable, we lost your voice at some point. You say it's a bad day for who?
I say it's still going to be a bad day for us because we are now saying that they are looking at it that it's going to be direct primaries, but then there is also an option of consensus. Now, the consensus is an indirect way of bringing delegate form of election to me, because they can be able to sit with few candidates, shut out some candidates from participating even in the process, and say these few candidates have agreed, come up with a letter, sign and endorse it, and forward that these candidates have agreed that this person is going for it. If one or two is not there, they will come up with a lot of excuses on the fact of you were invited, you refused to come, this one, that one, and all whatnot. So for me, that is really a big challenge. You know, that we shouldn't have even given that option. Even if they have agreed and to settle on a particular candidate, let us come, follow the ritual, just perform the ritual of going through the direct primaries. If everybody wants you, everybody should line up and just say, we want this person, and let the votes count. That is one. Now, for me, I want to approach the whole Electoral Act process from a different perspective entirely. Much more than what the two lawyers have said, on the basis that we are focusing more of our attention and energy on the general elections and what the results will look like. But for me, much of what is happening at the general elections is being allowed by the citizens. We have a slogan up here in northern Nigeria that you vote, guard your vote, protect it, accompany it until it is declared. It's mostly said in Hausa. Asere Araka and all whatnot. So if we can go by that, and that is what has made rigging in some parts of this northern part of the country difficult for some people. But most citizens in a lot of the parts of the country are docile. You just vote and you just go back home. You don't even care to check what the collation officer there is imputing or what the collation officer there is going to write. You just feel I've voted and you go off. So citizen participation in terms of ensuring credible elections at the general election for me is low. And much of it has to be emphasized ahead of 2027. Because even if we say it is only electronic transmission, sir, this electronic transmission, the figures are going to be imputed by a human being. These computers are going to be configured by human beings. They can configure it that anywhere they put one APC vote, it should reflect 10 ADC votes.
The way our analysts sound on this electoral act, it looks like all hope is lost. That is, I mean, there's nothing we can do to get it. All right. So I'd like for us to, while we talk about this, I'd like for us to return to the issue of, the delegates and all of that. So let's expand it. Let's get to the national level. Some people have said that, well, these direct primaries, away from consensus, the direct primaries come if you are unable to arrive at a consensus. And they are saying, well, it will be a good place for Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi to test their popularity in the ADC. Saying clearly, well, it is no longer going to be business as usual. Like in the last PDP primaries and at the national level, some people were alleged to have received $40,000 apiece, delegates. So, and now it's not going to happen. So will it be a ground for candidates, potential ground for candidates to test their popularity? Like I said, Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar, that's what people are saying out there. I spoke to a lawyer and he said, well, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Let Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar test their popularity at the polls, at the primary polls. Do you see that happening? Is it a ground for them to say, okay, well, we want you or we don't want you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think indeed it's going to be an opportunity for every candidate in parties that are organized and have made up their minds to do the right thing. That will not just go through the back door and say we've had a consensus. Even if you are going to court later, they now say they've expelled you from the party. So if there is that transparency, indeed it's a good ground for every candidate to be given that level playing ground for him to test his or her popularity, at the polls. And it's going to strengthen our democracy because you will see that primary elections of big political parties will be like an election day for the country. Because a lot of people will troop out, they will go voting and all whatnot. So it's in order. But just the way I've said, also I think going forward, when next we'll be pushing for amendment of Electoral Act, a lot of attention should be channeled to party politics. What we have at the general election is what the political parties have given us as candidates that we have to choose from. So if party A, B, C just put before you stone, beans, and rice, that is the only option left for Nigerians to vote on. So much effort should be, because the political parties are the feeders for leaders for the country. So we have to, if we are insisting that we must have electronic transmission of results at general elections, we should also insist political parties to get this thing right. Political parties can also transmit results of their primaries electronically. It should be that strict, because it is mostly at the political party level that the political funeral of a lot of persons' ambitions are conducted. Credible candidates with competence, capacity, and character are not given the opportunity because they are not in the good books of the powers that be in the party, and all whatnot. Even the direct primary stuff, the membership card and all. Like, for example, the APC now, they've been having a lot of back and forth with their membership registration process. They came and said e-registration, and a lot of hitches. They've not been able to meet up with it. So many persons who want to be members of the party have not been able to register. So the political parties must get it right at their own level. Civil society organizations must channel and put their searchlight on that and their focus. We have to structure it from the political party level. If not, if the political parties are just left to do whatsoever they feel like doing and just give us whatsoever they can present, at the end of the day, it is Nigerians will be left with those persons they present as the only options they can vote on, which I don't think it's worthwhile for us. You know, so but for me, the direct primaries issue, it's a good one and it's a welcome development. If Nigerians are going to put in a lot of attention on it, we'll be able to achieve a lot of success going forward in 2027. But the whole thing,
all right then,
stand to protect and defend the votes. Whatsoever that will be sent to IRF,
well, thank you very much. Defend the votes. That's what everybody's saying. Defend the votes. Thank you very much, Honorable Pascal Pulevo. And thank you very much, gentlemen. We've had Barrister Eze Luche and Barrister Asim Adams and also Dele Fanimo. But now let's move on to another conversation. And I'd like to start off with you, Barrister Asim Adams. When we come back, so let's ensure that your network is good, because we'll be going to Rivers State now. We'll be talking about the suspension of impeachment by lawmakers. That's impeachment of the governor and his deputy. That's similarly Fubara and Ngozi Odu. Well, when we come back, we'll touch on this, and we'll be starting off with Chief Asim Adams. Join us again. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Now, lawmakers in Rivers State have suspended impeachment proceedings against Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy, Ngozi Odu. Now, temporarily easing a political crisis that has rocked the state since January. The impeachment move, backed by 26 lawmakers loyal to former governor and current FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, accused the governor of budget violations, unauthorized spending, withholding funds meant for the legislature, and failing to present the 2026 appropriation bill, legal interventions, including a court order restraining the process, and had already slowed proceedings before the assembly formally suspended action during plenary in Port Harcourt. Now, the development follows reconciliation efforts led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who recently met with both political figures to de-escalate tensions. The impeachment saga is rooted in prolonged power struggle over control of the state's political structure. Oh well, let's go to Chief Asim Adams now, who I can call a Rivers man, as he has his base over there in Rivers State, and also, well, I'll keep the other things to myself. Chief Asim Adams. Good morning once again. Good. So.
Yeah, good morning to you.
Once again, yes. So now, this is expected, because right after the president intervened again in the Rivers State issues, we saw Siminalayi Fubara and his godfather, Nyesom Wike, hold hands, got into the vehicle together. They seemed happy, and father and son made up. And, so this move, well, did it come as a surprise to you? I'm sure not. But can we say that now peace has come to Rivers State and all involved sheath their swords and enjoy, and the people will enjoy the dividends of democracy without intervention. And are you privy to any other information that says that the governor will now run for second term? Because that has been one of the what's been up for contention.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Moses. First of all, I must say that I am not privy to whether or the resolution or the terms of the agreement that was reached between the governor and the legislature. I am not privy to those, you understand, because but what I know is that what we have in Rivers State is not peace, it's truce. Is there a word like truce? You understand? There should be a word like truce.
Yes, there is, of course.
You know, where parties will say, let's hold on and see whether it's going to work out as the case may be. I use that word carefully because peace can never be forced. You can't force people to get peace. Peace is a process. Peace is a conscious thing that parties will say, yes, I have agreed to be at peace with my neighbor. You can't force them to say you must be at peace with your neighbor, or you must have peace as the case may be, because peace is not forced. Even though I understand that Gandhi once postulated that the most disadvantageous of peace is better than a just war. Of course, it depends on the angle that you want to view it from. But for me, there's a truce. Okay. And once you have a truce and an olive branch has been, declared in war situations, there's relative peace. That is what we have in Rivers State now. Now, the Rivers people are very happy that this peace or truce has come about, because in the first instance, it was an unnecessary war. It was an unnecessary imbroglio. The state has suffered. The people have suffered. You know what they say? When two elephants fight, it is the grass that will suffer. I don't even think that we have grass right now in Rivers State. What we have now are craters and gullies. You understand? Because the grass, the people have been, driven into the ground. Starvation and hunger, unemployment has become a firmament in Rivers State, and the people are suffering. I would have suggested that quickly and just now, that the executive governor of Rivers State, with this truce, should roll his sleeves up and go about teaching out what we call dividends of democracy, even if it's for just 8 months. Now that the Godfather has said he can go about his ruling and rule. Let me tell you, education in Rivers State is in shambles. Health institutions are in limbo. You look at unemployment is in akimbo. The state is standing on its spindle legs with distended economic tummy. As I stay here in Rivers State, I cannot say whether I can have my next meal, because right now everywhere is lull and dull. There's gloom, and the gloom is diabolic, because activities are in a very shibboleth matter that people are just wayward and hopeless right now. The governor has to do something. I do not know whether there is governance in Rivers State for the past 3 years because of these skirmishes and imbroglio. Anyway, he should quickly activate all the apparatuses, apparati, and apparatchik of governance to deliver. The first point I want to ask the governor to do, there is a primary school close to me, it is called Nkpolu. That school has been there. The students and whatever, they don't go to school anymore because of the environment. Everywhere there is overtaken by grass. In fact, reptiles and whatever you find it there. There's a big pond of water called Nkpolu Lake surrounding that particular area.
Are we not putting too much pressure on the executive governor? Isn't that the duty of the local government?
We are not putting pressure on him. When they are entering the till and the treasury, do people put pressure on them? When they are taking money to go and buy their cars and whatever, Do you put pressure on them? So if you are there as the governor, I'm just suggesting to you, these are the reasons because none has worked before.
Okay.
Those things are not in place. We are begging them to help us.
All right.
Even if he cannot achieve all I've listed, let him start something that is visible for us to see.
All right.
That is what I'm trying to say. I'm not putting pressure on him, but these are his job and his duties that they abdicated because of politics. They have just 1 year left. Please, they should use this 1 year to do things visible for us to see, not politicking, as the case may be. Now, that is my take.
All right. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much, Chief Asim Adams. Even though the network made it difficult to get your last words there, but we'll come back to you before the end of this conversation and before the end of the day. But let's go back to another legal practitioner, Mr. Eze Eluche. Now, let's establish communication. Are you still with us?
Yes, sure I am. Sure I am, yes.
Good, thank you. Now, some would say that the impeachment move would have failed anyway, judging by what was being played out in the state. So the move to impeach the governor would have, failed, even if the president hadn't intervened. But this is where we are. What are your thoughts on this one?
My thoughts, I have pity for the people of Rivers State. It's a neighboring state. It's a well-endowed state, a blessed state that should not be where it is now. But the blame for all this, like I've been saying from the very onset, goes to the table of Mr. President Bola Tinubu. Why do I say so? Right from the onset of this crisis in Rivers State, when he brokered a so-called peace meeting between members of the House and the governor and members of the House who support Nyesom Wike and the governor, it has been clear that Mr. Tinubu was playing games with the wealth, with the patrimony of with the lives and livelihood of Rivers State, and it has continued. Even the so-called truth, which is being referred to, is neither here nor there, because there is still It doesn't mean that all the very serious charges which the members of the House of Assembly had laid on against Mr. Fubara have disappeared. Because those were high crimes against the treasury and people of Rivers State. What happens to them? They have been swept under the carpet because of a truce. You see, we should call a spade a spade. This is high criminality. Mr. Bola Tinubu is trying to gloss over real criminal acts. And insane crimes, he will pay dearly for this. Because it's costing the people of Rivers State. I read through the list of charges the members of the House brought against Mr. Fubara. What happens to those charges? Were they an imagination? If they were all lies, will the members of the House be held accountable for those lies? These are the issues, and not to say you have brokered truth. Because let me assure Nigerians, the truth that was brokered is to be able to funnel the funds of Rivers State towards Mr. Tinubu's electoral ambition, which is unfortunately what the funds of Rivers State have been used since 1999, right from the time of Peter Odili through the time of Amechi. The people of Rivers State have never really enjoyed the wealth of their state. Rather, it is used.
All right, we seem to have a problem.
And then the government just takes it as it will. That is what Tinubu is doing now. At the end of the day, the people that suffer all this political gymnastics is the people of Rivers State, and they should put a stop to it. How do they put a stop to it? If you remember the last election, 2023 elections, Rivers State had the worst of all elections. The INEC was so brazen in rigging. The mutilated from EC8 was all over. And the declared results of both the members of the House of Assembly and the governor showed that these guys are imposters. And that is what you get when you allow imposters to rule over you. That's why I call upon Nigerians. At the next elections, do not allow this, because you will end up in the mess Rivers State has been put now by these same characters who perpetrated the electoral fraud. And I agree with what the man who spoke from the north is saying. It is not that the people in the south are scared, but it's that there is an overwhelming presence of security men who are set out to kill. But I want to assure people now, at the next elections, we should know that we're already being killed. We're already dying as a result of maladministration and the weak governance. So come out and call a spade and challenge these rascals when they try to impose the wrong candidates on you. Rivers State will not be in the mess it is now if people who ascended into office had the backing of the people, because they realized that they owe their legitimacy to the voters and not to somebody in Abuja. Both Fubara and the members of the House of Assembly know that their allegiance is to the person in Abuja.
All right.
And somebody with a wicked is just being puppeted. He's not been made to look like as if he has any powers. In real circumstances, who is wicked to challenge the city state government that can declare his mansion in Port Harcourt a drainage channel and bulldoze the place down?
All right,
but it's only because Mr. Tinubu is backing this infamy in Rivers State. We should call it a spade and stop glorifying the rascality going on in Rivers State.
All right.
That's my take on this. Thank you very much.
Barrister Eluche, curiously, since the president has intervened and we have relative calm and peace, so would it be right to say that the real political leader of Rivers State is Mr. Tinubu, the president, and not Mr. Wike, as widely touted? Well,
Mr. Tinubu thinks that people can gloss over these high crimes. The issue is of intervening. What under democracy? What is he intervening for? What is his role? Where does it come in? He has the federal government to man. The people of Rivers should face their state. So his so-called intervention, like I told you, I said earlier, is just to ensure that the fund that will be used for the federal elections come out from Rivers State as at when due. So that's the whole idea, and not for the peace and interest of people of Rivers State. Like Barrister Sim said earlier, the infrastructure is decaying in Rivers State. The staff are not being promoted. Nothing is working in the state. The richest oil state in the country, and nothing is working there. And Tinubu is talking of peace. What peace of the graveyard? That's what Tinubu is working out for. But people of Rivers State should ensure that they vote next time to avoid this kind of circumstances.
All right, then.
Thank you very much.
Let's just take this round. Let's get to Honorable Pascal Pulevo. Honorable Pascal, let's examine the president's intervention once again in this from your perspective. And we've seen Minister Wike now show us what a level of unity can do. I don't know what the joining power is, but we've seen, I think INEC might need to register another party, the PDAPC, because we've seen that play out in Rivers State, where Minister Wike brought, the chairman of both the PDP and the APC and said, look, this has not happened anywhere else in Nigeria where they come together. And then even in some parts of the FCT now, there's chanting of the PDAPC. What does this portend for Nigeria's democracy?
All right, so we thank the president for his intervention, and in agreement with the two lawyers that have spoken earlier, I would wish to ask why now. So the president knows that indeed these guys will respect him, they will listen to him all the while. So why is it that it took him this long for him to intervene? Why is it that it is at this time to intervene? And that clearly paints the picture. It is not about the people of Rivers, but it's about the interests of the three of them, largely, in which the president is the chief beneficiary of the whole process. He wants to just ensure that there is a temporary peace, because whatsoever that is going to happen in the Rivers is just temporary. It's just temporary peace now. He's doing all he can to ensure there is temporary peace, and then they work for him, and he secures his second term. Then after that, if they like, let heads roll, he doesn't give a damn. That is sad. And the whole thing is back to the people of Rivers. So you can imagine, just like Barrister Eze asked, what happened to those charges? Genuine issues of concern that have gone against the constitution of the country. They've been swept over under the carpet because of politics. We are playing politics with the lives of the people. A lot of persons have died in the course of this mess. A lot of infrastructure were destroyed in the course of this rift. But all of a sudden, because of few persons' interest, we are saying, oh, let's just put these things aside, let's just forge ahead. We assure you of automatic ticket, everybody will come back, blah, 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 and then we push through. The main people, the people of Rivers, are the ones at the receiving end. And just the way I said earlier, the whole thing is on our hands. The citizens must rise and take these things. Rivers is over 10 million persons. But from the councillor of the whole wards that we have in Rivers State, down to all the stakeholders that make up Rivers State are not up to 1 million, sir. All of them. In fact, including Mr. President, they are not up to 1 million. From the councillor of your ward down, even appointed positions and all whatnot, they are not up to 1 million. Then holding the lives of over 10 million persons at ransom.
All right, then. Thank you very much.
To be docile.
All
so
right.
it's sad. And the people must be able to rise up because the people are the ones at the receiving.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Honorable Puleva. Now, let's return to the studio where we still have Dele Fanima with us. Dele, in all that is going on in Rivers State, will you say that someone has won because it's been a battle? I mean, the impeachment proceedings has been dropped. So, in all of this, let's even assume that there's been a battle. Do you think that it is the Rivers people that has won? Is it Wike that has won, or is it Fubara that has won in all of this democratic fight?
So, ultimately, you recall that some few months ago, when this, was it late last year or early this year, when this impeachment process started, I told you, you were shocked when I said they won't impeach Fubara. Because I knew that there was no way they could have impeached Fubara.
Without intervention of the president? Or you knew that the president was going to intervene?
The president was going to intervene.
Okay.
For his own gains. Because what actually happened was the members of the House of Assembly that were pushing for the impeachment of the governor did it out of selfish interest. They felt the governor insulted them in December by sending 100,000 naira each to them for Christmas. In the midst of several hundreds of billions of naira in the kitty of Rivers, which they feel entitled to part of it. So the only way they could jolt the governor to reality is to harass him. And the only harassment they could do was to instigate impeachment. Meanwhile, on the flip side, the president will not go and bring somebody who does not have resources of the state at his disposal to contest the next election. And you recall that I said Fubara will contest 2027 and he will win against all odds. But what the president is doing right now is to maintain a balance. He still needs Wike to do his actual job for him, and he doesn't want to lose Fubara because it will be more expensive and more cumbersome for him if he has to drop Fubara and pick another candidate within the party, because there are some people that are already rooting for Fubara, and he knows some of these people have access to the state resources as of now.
You think those people cannot easily switch to another person that
no, they're not going to switch.
Okay.
You understand? This was the same thing that played out when Akeredolu died, and some people were saying, Ayedatiwa will not emerge. Even in the state, we knew that Ayedatiwa, the current governor, was not the best for that seat. But the permutation, except when you want to delude yourself and not fly along the tide of reality, that's when you think that you just assume and you want it and it will be done. But the reality in politics is such that if you do your calculation, you will know the next thing a politician will do. I've been sufficiently close to them. So the same thing that played out. In fact, the former finance commissioner of Akeredolu, who wanted to square up with Ayedatiwa, I told somebody in my state then, I said that this guy, if he doesn't take time, he will end up in EFCC cell and he will not be out until that election is conducted. As soon as they grabbed him, 4 days later, what did he do? He came out to say, I've dropped my political ambition and I'm supporting Ayedatiwa. So, Wike is on the side of the president, Fubara is on the side of the president, and the president is just trying to maintain a balance.
The president is the winner in all.
So, the president is the winner.
Okay.
There is no way Rivers people will win in this.
Okay, because it's a political battle.
It's a political battle.
They said that when two elephants fight, it is the grasses that
suffer. In this case, it's the Rivers people that is the grass.
Okay. Now, let's move away from that and get into the world of insecurity. Dozens killed in Kebbi attack as forces launch new joint operations. Let's talk about this when we return. I'll be right back.
In a world where power shifts with every headline.
In a nation full of questions.
In a world filled with noise, the truth needs a voice.
The policies that shapes our world and the economy that determines our future.
Every hour, every day, the grapevine keeps buzzing.
And together, we are committed to telling the stories that shape our world because your voice is our focus.
Don't forget, our voice matters the most. Let us come together and share our concerns.
Welcome back. A wave of violent attacks has heightened security concerns across parts of Nigeria, with at least 34 fasting Muslims reportedly killed in coordinated raids on 7 communities in Kebbi State. Police say suspected members of Lakurawa group stormed villages, opening fire on residents and rustling cattle before fleeing, while security forces were deployed to restore order. In a separate incident in Ondo State, gunmen killed a traditional ruler after an attempted abduction at his palace, despite resistance from local security outfits. Authorities say investigations and manhunts are ongoing to apprehend those responsible. Meanwhile, military operations against insurgents recorded some progress, with troops reportedly neutralizing a former Boko Haram commander and arresting a suspected logistics supplier linked to terrorist networks. In Kwara State, the federal government has launched a new joint security initiative, Operation Savannah Shield, approved by President Tinubu, aimed at tackling banditry, kidnapping, and terrorists across forested regions. Particularly, Kainji Lake National Park. Officials say the operation will combine military force, intelligence, and community engagement to restore safety in affected farming communities and neighboring states. Mr. Fanimo, let's tackle this. What do you think is really happening? Because I also see that there's this trend of adopting traditional rulers. What exactly is happening?
These so-called terrorists, they're just trying to make statements. And they're just showing that they could push back, regardless of the presence of America in Nigeria. And they are intentional about it. They are hitting hard. And it's also a complex situation that you don't even have enough intelligence because of their nomadic nature now. Unlike before, where you could say Lukarawa terrorists operate from northwest, Boko Haram from northeast, bandits part of northwest and to the north central. Now you cannot locate them. They come, they evolve and dissolve into thin air. So it's a very difficult situation now to really track them. They are so mobile that you can't even track them these days. So it's a big challenge for the security forces. And the abduction and killing of traditional rulers is also to make statements that we are beyond your reach. Wherever you want to strike, we will strike. And some of them are even writing in advance that on so date, at so time we are coming. And in most cases, they do. And they live on their trail, like Fela sang, blood, tears, and sorrow. So how we're going to tackle this, it's becoming difficult for even me to hazard guesses as how this can be tackled. It's a big menace today in our country. So I'm sure that it is not, I know that particular village in my state, Agamo, is close to my hometown. And that place, indigenous or settlers from other races couldn't have done what they did to that traditional ruler. And I'm sure even if you send the whole of Nigerian army to that area, you're not going to find the killers. At best, they will pick some people and label them as killers.
The military said, sorry to cut you, the military said Operation Savannah is to secure agricultural areas in Nigeria. Do you think in 2026, the military can actually protect the lives of farmers, especially this 2026 planting season, in states where these terrorists actually write letters? We saw it happen in Kebbi State, and they were asking for 100 million naira. So do you think the military can actually do that?
You see, the point is, so soldiers will now be security men for farmland. That's the implication of what you are saying. Because if the soldiers leave in 1 hour, they can strike. So instead of doing that, why don't you just tell the soldiers to pull up their khaki and go and farm for us? What is the implication?
With their guns strapped.
With their guns strapped behind them.
Okay, let's quickly run back to Barrister Eze Eluche. Okay, yeah, so that he will help us make sense of this. Barrister Eze, I mean, we are back to it again. Insecurity, 34 people killed, 34 Muslims killed, even in the wake of the Ramadan and all of that. Well, these people have been emboldened. They don't even care. Does it look like they are calling the bluff of the United States of America? Because, well, we were told that they are coming to give us tactical operational support and intelligence. When are we expected? When do we start seeing that happen? How much of this do you understand? Can you walk us through your understanding of the doubling down of terrorists, even in the presence of United States troops here in Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, we must realize that what we have is a failure of intelligence. The Office of the National Security Advisor is there. Rather than focus on serious issues, they are busy pushing those who claim to have tapped into the the Nuhu Ribadu's phone, and terrorists are running riot all over the place. That's on one hand, total failure of intelligence. Secondly, is we have to also understand and appreciate the Islamic principle of taqiyya. Taqiyya is deceit. And I referred to the attack on the mosque where over 37 people were killed. I mean, when the idea is to dissuade or to douse the issue of genocide against Christians, and then you hear news of 37 worshippers killed, maybe Shia or Shiites, you begin to wonder, is there really genocide going on? So these are part of and that is under the principle of taqiyya, when you deceive to achieve the ultimate goals you want to achieve. The third, which I also want us to look at, is the fault in the Nigerian structure, in the Nigerian constitution. I do not agree with Mr. Fanimo that they are all over and we can't track them. No, every inch of land in Nigeria, there is somebody claiming ownership to it, either villagers or communities or whatever. So people know their lands, but the fact is that the police, the security apparatus we have in Nigeria cannot police it because they are stationed somewhere in Abuja or in the state capital. Policing is local. If you empower the communities with what they need to combat or confront these criminal elements, we won't have these killings going on. So when we realize these three, talking about Americans, you cannot expect Americans they're not fools. No American blood will be spilled unnecessarily on Nigerian soil to protect what they know is political gymnastics. Because the so-called issue of terrorism and banditry is politics to Nigerians. These guys who are ruling over us want to keep on flaming this ember of insecurity so that they can keep on winning the elections. You will realize that when there is elections, all the polling units, 177,000 of them will record votes, despite the fact that in Nigeria today, over 150 local government areas are not under government control. In Nigeria, over half of the state is under terrorist control. Zamfara, Kebbi, Sokoto. But on the day of elections, all these areas will record near 100% turnout. So this is politics. And then we have to understand it, call it spade for what it is. You will not see these terrorists or bandits striking in wedding fatihas, no matter how elaborate they are in any part of the north. But they'll keep on striking at very weak targets. So the United States, we should not look on them because perhaps even Trump is playing to local politics in the US by sending troops to Nigeria, not to address the issue of what we can address by ourselves, what those who are ruling over us are engineering for their own selfish political gains. Otherwise, you cannot tell me that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Barrister Eluche. Now, let's quickly run back to Barrister Asim Adams. Barrister Adams, when we talk about ungoverned spaces in Nigeria, I've heard you talk about ungoverned spaces quite a number of times. When we talk about ungoverned spaces, does it look like it's a problem of government, or is it because, we have a massive land mass, space? Is it not possible to, deploy protection, intelligence, even around ungoverned spaces? Do we have the capacity to achieve all of that? Because if we talk about ungoverned spaces, looks like these are the areas where the terrorists, target soft points to weak points to hit us. Can't we take care of ungoverned spaces in Nigeria?
Oh, well, it's quite unfortunate. We do have a network glitch there preventing Barrister C. Adams from continuing with his summation. So unfortunate, but I guess this is where we have to wrap it up on the program this morning and go to the papers much later. But we must say a very big thank you to Daily Fanimo, a reporter and public affairs commentator, and also Barrister Eze Eluche, who joined the conversation virtually. He's also a legal practitioner and attorney at law and a public affairs commentator. Barrister Asim Adams, legal practitioner, civil rights activist, former spokesperson, Chief Beatrice Etubo, P2B Campaign Organization, River State, and also Honorable Felix Pascal Level, the public affairs commentator. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time and your contribution. We'll take a break. When we come back, it will be newspaper review. Join us again. I am Moses Humphrey.
And I am Chukuma Okoro. See you again.
And I'm Jane Ogoye. See you soon.